Today, I'm joined by Mario Rios. Mario, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast. I've heard wonderful things about the great work you do, so I'm just honored to be here. But I'm Mario Rios, and I'm a UTSA professor, adjunct professor at UTSA. I've been there for 15 years, and my work has been in the communications department, and I love it. The students that we've had that have come through our classrooms, there's so many of them, so many stories that can be told. Just feeling very blessed and honored to be part of that experience. And the work I do, most of the classes I do is graphic design. I've done digital media. And I do a business professional speech class as well. So, but my primary focus has been the graphic design area for teaching at UTSA.
Excellent. I understand you're an entrepreneur too, so you might have some advice for people who are starting their own businesses. I know that could be a really challenging thing. Do you have some advice for people who might be booting up a business?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, my whole career has been about being an entrepreneur. I always like to tell others or the students that I work with, I tell them you can work for the man or you can work for yourself and find which way you feel like your wings will fly high. And there's many people who do either or. I just happen to do both. And there are other people like me who do both. We live in a world now where you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, and the technology has changed the game. And I can remember back in the day when, you had to be rooted to one particular type of work because that's all you could do. But now with technology, you can be doing what we're doing right now, a podcast, and you can be promoting a message to the masses with virtually zero pennies spent. I mean, I know there's some money involved in this, but it's not as much as it was back in the day where you had to hire a full production crew to come in and bring their trucks and point their satellite dishes to the sky and get the signal right and do whatever you had to do. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars that were spent in order to communicate a message. Now you can do it virtually from your laptop. You could do it from your phone. I mean, you could do it anywhere. So when you're an entrepreneur, take advantage of the technology and it can carry you to the next level. And that's what I've done. I've embraced technology and used it to my advantage. And so besides being a college professor, I'm also have been involved in the grade school, secondary school environment of ISD work, independent school districts. I mean, I've done that, and I've worked in the public relations office, and I use that. That's still working for the man, but for the entrepreneur part is the real estate. I got involved in real estate 15 years ago, and I realized I love it. I love, some people on weekends go to movies, go to restaurants, go to the park. I just happen to go to houses, and I take clients with me, and it's like an adventure. We go through homes, and we're looking at the right home for that particular client. The families, we want to find a good fit. And for me, I find a lot of passion out of helping others. And when you can do that, it just makes me feel good. Knowing that you help a family who have young kids who they've been, maybe confined to a 2-bedroom apartment for the past couple of years, and now they need to grow more, and they're able to qualify to buy a better house and a yard and have the dog run around. It's stuff you hear about in movies, but it's beautiful when you see it come to happen in real life. So the communications part of you can help make the real estate work for you. If real estate's the part of entrepreneur you want to work with, there's many other facets of entrepreneur that you could do as well. Mine just happens to be real estate, and I utilize everything I know about communications work to help make me successful with real estate. The bottom line is no matter what type of entrepreneur field you use, it's about treating people right, cultivating relationships, being a good communicator, I think a good seed is being a good writer. And obviously, I love photography, I love video, so that's like the candle on the cake.
And thinking about our public relations students, our students who are interested in graphic design, our students who are interested in creating podcasts and creating digital media, do you have any specific advice for them that might apply to their business? Because you have both the business side and the communication side, and you know how to combine both of these talents to create leads or to create good things for the business or for the personal brand. I wonder if you have some advice you can share for those students who are about to work in public relations or start their own business.
That's a great question. I do think, I'm old school. I do think that treating people right, treat people the way you want to be treated can go a long way. And I do believe that if you develop strong relationships with your clients, you can go buy a billboard off of Newport and display it and say Ryan's podcast, or you could put a billboard that says Mario's or Professor Rios, Mario's, digital media world, whatever it might be. And that's one way of communicating. But my gosh, there's no stronger form of making your business successful than word of mouth. And word of mouth comes with how you treat people. And if you treat people right, if you show that you care, I mean, I would think you would. Oh my gosh, that all that does is open a door for success, because you help one client. And in this case, for me, it's real estate. You help one client get their next right home. It may not be their dream home, because everybody's always in life. It's a good, long life, we pray. But it's always I always like to call it your next right home. And you get your next right home, and that family or that individual remembers. And then when they hear that somebody's looking for a realtor, the best endorsement you can get is a referral. That beats the billboard on Newport where you're just a face. Like the attorney that goes, I'm no disrespect, but I mean, that's something, and that's catchy. The way you treat somebody, and the client can share, I worked with this individual, and oh my gosh, this man will treat you like family. He treats you like you're the only client he has. So you can't get any higher praise than that. And all I'm doing is rehashing comments that have been made to me in the past on your podcast here today. I'm just sharing with you memories of what people have said about my work. Now, is everybody happy? Of course not. And I mean, this is not a sugar-coated world here for our students to hear that, oh, everything's going to come out peaches and cream. That's not true, but you strive for that. You do your best to point the arrow up. Yes, there's going to be some rocky roads, but you learn from them. And you always try to get better. And it's about the body of work. It's not about one or a few experiences that may not have gone the way you wanted. You always pick up, and I've always believed this since even teenage years. You fall down and you get right back up, and you keep moving, and you keep fighting to get to the finish line proudly. It's word of mouth, it's relationships, it's how you treat people. I know it sounds old school, but oh my gosh, that is a beautiful way to strengthen your entrepreneurships, by the way, how you treat people.
Excellent. So many of our students don't yet have the kind of amazing reputation you have. They might not yet have as many client testimonials on their website. What are the kinds of strategies you would recommend to them if they're just trying to start out? They're just trying to start their very first PR agency or their very first real estate venture. What kinds of strategies and tactics would you recommend for someone starting this journey?
Another great question, Ryan. I appreciate that. I can tell you that experience goes a long way. And if doing the work one time and then doing a second time and a third time, it's like riding a bike. You just get better and better and better at it the more you do it. But you got to do it that first time. And when you're first starting out, yes, you don't have that. You're still trying to figure things out. And that's normal. That's part of the life, the beautiful journey we take in life. We grow, and I think that's important. But when you're first starting out, there's nothing wrong. And I'm really strong on a big advocate on sharing with students. If you can get an internship, oh my gosh, that can open up so many doors, because not only do you get the work experience, but you develop the relationships. What I was saying a moment ago about the way you treat people, you develop these contacts, and that opens up doors for that word of mouth thing that we were talking about earlier. But doing the work, an internship is one way to do it while you're at UTSA. If you get that opportunity, I strongly, strongly encourage that. Besides that, there's nothing wrong, whether it's real estate or a PR firm or an ad agency, whatever your focus is, there's nothing wrong with finding a client, for instance, a PR firm, and maybe someone who owns a food truck in San Antonio or wherever you may live, and someone who has a food truck and they're doing their business and they've been around, but you want to help them expand, and they might have a modest budget, any budget at all. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, can I help you? Can I together a PR campaign or an advertising package campaign for you guys? Can I help you with your flyers, even, with your menus, your artwork, like your wrap around your truck, whatever it might be, your advertising? Put together a campaign and just do it for free. Maybe the food truck guy will give you free lunch. I don't know, whatever it is, you'll get something out of it. But that's the short-term win. The big-term win is the bigger feather in the hat, and that's the experience. Because if you get the experience, then you have that food truck campaign. And let's just say that food truck person's sales was, they were only parked at one parking lot for the last 6 months. And thanks to you with the work that you do for help promoting the business or the food truck, now that person is now at multiple parking lots because of the word getting out. And that's something that you can be proud that you helped do. But not only that, it starts your work portfolio. And once you have a work portfolio, when you go to the next potential project, one of the most famous questions you'll hear a potential client ask, or even employer ask, either or, however you want to slice that apple, is, well, it looks great. You went to UTSA, you got this degree, and you've done this, but can you please show me a sample of your work? That is a standard question you hear in this line of work we do as communications. And showing samples of your work, of what you've done, will open up tons of doors for you if the work is done well. So the only way you could do that is internship or potentially doing free work. And of course, there are fortunate ones who can do the work and get paid. That's great if you get that opportunity. And one final thought is never take anything for granted. When you're doing the work, you might be doing the work on Monday, but on Tuesday, for whatever reason, the work stops. So enjoy the ride while you're doing the ride and take every moment as it's your last, meaning that you do your best work always, because you're always as good as your last presentation, your last advertising campaign, your last real estate experience, whatever it may be. I always like to share with others is treat every day like it's the biggest day, because you want to make sure that you do good work, because again, that work strengthens your portfolio, but it also provides networking and opportunity for you to get that word of the mouth thing that we talked about, where that person that you do that work for can help refer you, and that could help you as well. So that's my best advice when it comes to that, Ryan. I do truly believe that there's nothing like doing the actual work that could really, the hands-on really can take you to another level.
Hands-on work, no substitute for it. I know that we asked public relations students to create real projects for real nonprofits. I know that in graphic design courses, they do the same kind of thing. I wonder what specifically you would look for if you were hiring someone based on their portfolio, be it for public relations or advertising or another communication discipline. What are some of the things that you would look for specifically if you were hiring someone to help your business, which is such a personal thing, such an important thing to you? To grow your business, what would you look for in those portfolios?
That's a great question. I do believe that the work, you've heard the phrase, a photo can say 1,000 words. Well, I feel the same way as the work. I mean, you can't hide subpar performance, if you will. Your work speaks loudly. And that's why I was saying, make sure you put your best foot forward. And I do believe that the work it's the seed. It's the key to success. The work can really show others who may not know you that well. They'll say, wow, this person's advertising campaign is, they dotted the I's, they crossed the T's. They covered everything. They put together a package of where they thought of every scenario, and they're addressing every point, and they're hitting every member of our target audience, and they're looking at all different age demographics, and they're looking at all types of backgrounds, and they're taking culture into the equation as well. This work is on top of it. They're on top of their game. How could you not be excited if you see something like that? Because remember, you can go into an interview and you do your best to do that, that pitch, that hire me. But oh my gosh, I've been on both sides of the interview, and trust me, I'd rather be on the side where you're interviewing than being interviewed. But they're both fun. I do like being interviewed. I'm not going to say I don't, but I do like that too. But if I'm doing the interview, I'm looking at my checklist here and I'm going, okay, well, the person is, on it, knows about our organization, has done their homework. I think that's huge. Make sure you do that. But the work that's what does it. The work stands for itself. If it's subpar work, it's hard to offer somebody 50, 60, whatever that salary might be for that. Because remember, you get that one budget and the big boss says, I'm going to give you this much money. I'm going to let you hire a full-time employee, and they're going to do all this project stuff that we're lacking in because we're shorthanded. So find the best fit. Well, I want somebody who hopefully on day one can run the football. Obviously, there's a learning curve. You got to learn the environment and that kind of thing. But whoever has done the work can catch on quickly in such a competitive business climate that we're in this day and age we're in now. So again, the work, it's about the work. So do the spell check, do the little, when you're doing the graphic design and you see that the photo might be bleeding off the layout and it's not aligned correctly, clean it up. Do the PR campaign where you may not have included a certain element, where you wanted to have an interview with the CEO and you decided to kind of fudge that because you couldn't ever get a hold of them, or you couldn't get the permission, or whatever you're doing. But I'm just trying to give you some quick examples. Dot the I's, cross the T's. It's so important. It's about the work.
You just mentioned about being detail oriented. So I want to ask, what kind of details might someone need to pay closer attention to when they're doing the work of a journalist or a digital storyteller? Because I know you have a deep experience in that field too. Do you have any advice for how to put together digital media for effective storytelling? Any specific kinds of things that would help people tell stories more persuasively or in a more engaging way?
Yes, I mean, my best advice is for digital storytelling is you really want to know that source. You want to get to know that source. And you can't do that in an email. You can't do that in a text message. You got to go face to face. We talked about details. You do got to get into the details. And I do believe that when you're doing it, I mean, you're going down into the weeds and you're putting yourself in their shoes and you're trying to feel their experiences. And that's how you communicate it to the masses. That's how you're able to write the script. That's how you're able to compose the photos or the visuals that you're getting to marry in with the words that you've written when you're doing that storytelling. That's how you identify the music. The music that's going to be the soundtrack that's copyright free, or the tone or the vibe. You're able to do that. Was this person serious? Was this person funny? Was this person, dramatic? Whatever. You're finding all the different elements that goes to the storytelling and you're matching it to the person that you interviewed. So I think you have to walk the walk to talk the talk, if you will. So you do that by learning the source you interview. Right now in my career, I've done many, many types of video storytelling. My background is mostly news. I was fortunate. I started off, I was 18 years old when I got into a newsroom. How that happened, that was because of God. That's how that happened. But I was in college and I somehow became the sports writer of a small town newspaper. And that's what did it. I couldn't believe I was 18 years old and I was a sports writer and getting paid. That's what did it and I did all that, starting with that and continued with my schooling. And throughout the journey, I hit what I consider one of my best jobs was CBS News in San Antonio, where I worked for KINS 5. And I got to work there throughout the 90s. And I went to some of the biggest stories you could think of in the 90s. I was part of the Gulf War experience. I went to Oklahoma City bombing. I also got to cover President Bill Clinton and Pope John Paul in Denver. The Selena unfortunate tragedy that happened in Corpus Christi. I mean, I could go on and on throughout the decade of the 90s, but those were all video news stories that I did. But with all that, those were all experiences that I remember. But what it led me to is to where I'm now at in my career. And I've had a long career, but where I'm at now is the part that I'm most passionate about is what you call biopics or historical biographies on different people. And I do many of those. I do at least 10 to 15 of those a year now. And what I do is I go out to the person's home, and before I get there, I tell them, okay, we're going to be here on this date, this time. We'll bring a camera, I'll bring a microphone. We're going to do a good interview with you. And while I'm there, can you go to the garage? Can you go to the attic? Can you go to the spare bedroom and open up those boxes, knock off the dust, knock off the spider webs, and pull out all that memorabilia of that time frame in your life and just spread it out on the kitchen table. Just spread it out there. Well, Mr. Rios, are you sure? Yes. Please just do it. And when I get there, I mean, I'm old school, and I've said that many times now in this podcast, but what I do is as soon as I get there, I have the source start telling me their story. They start pointing at photos, and I'm recording all this, and I'm capturing those images. And here I am at, when I hit that home run for the Yankees, because I've interviewed people like that. Or here I am when I'm in, fifth grade, and I'm with this teacher and whatever it might be, and getting those images. And then after I have all those images, then I sit down for a length interview with them and make them feel comfortable and ask them just all kinds of questions till you get that. You can spend 30 minutes with somebody interviewing them, but the reality is you're only going to pick the best sound bites that you can use to help tell that story. You don't have the luxury of having the entire interview. I wish you did, but you don't, because you're trying to compile or present a presentation that is friendly to the viewer so they'll want to watch it. And the studies have shown that anything that's anywhere from 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, but more like 3 minutes long when you're doing a bio, and if it's at part of a gala or an event, because that's a lot of the work I do is for a galas where we go recognize them and give them an award, but we're showing their bios prior to their award presentation, is a good time frame. Now, if you get the fortunate opportunity where you can do a 30-minute or a 1-hour production, like a little movie, that would be amazing. And I've done that as well. And you can really tell their story and let the source talk even more. But if you're trying to capture the essence in 3 to 4 minutes, you have to be very strategic on what information that you're putting into the presentation. So a 30-minute interview, you try to ask all the right questions. And I like to build from small to big. And I like to build to my money questions. And my money questions could be anything about, something to get them passionate and emotional about something. And I got to say this, if you can make someone emotional in the interview, you've done your job. And if you get someone to have a tear or to just break out in laughter or something, that again is doing the right work. So there's so much we could do with this topic, Ryan, as far as when it comes to communicating. But I do think that you've got our young communication students need to roll up their sleeves, get down into the weeds, and really know the project well and embrace it with full 100 to give it everything that they have in order to create a production that will make others want to watch it, right? So it's about, yes, you could be a slick editor, you can throw in all this animation and graphics and all this beautiful stuff we can do with technology, but it always comes down to the spoken word. If it's a video, it's the spoken word. If it's print, it's the writing. But they all need to sing. And that's what we do. And I use this a lot in my classes. I share this with some students who might have taken me note my phrase. I feel like I want to buy a t-shirt or get it copyrighted or something and have it embedded on there. But I think all communications professionals, and the phrase is we're in the business to inform and to entertain. That's what we do. We inform and we entertain, and we do it to the highest degree. And if we do that, then the projects will peak.
I love this topic of biopics. Years ago, I was a member of the Association of Personal Historians, or APH, Association of Personal Historians. So I am loving where this conversation is turning. I didn't know that you did that too, because you've done so much and we've talked about so much that you do. So I want to dive deeper on what it takes to create this masterpiece that will celebrate this person's life at this very special moment. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen made, or mistakes that maybe you've made in the past as you're gathering all of that information? You're having to go through the attic stuff. You're having to go through the basement stuff. You're trying to get all this information together. You're trying to craft a story arc for that human being that shines a light on what they're about. That is a very difficult thing. I've been to lots of seminars and lots of workshops on how to do that. And I think it is a special skill. And I think you're the perfect person to tell us what goes right, what goes wrong, and how we can make better stories about individuals, about personal storytelling.
Very nice. Yes. Thank you for recognizing that, Ryan. I can tell you some of the trials and tribulations that you'll have is, just 2 years ago, I do an event called Athletic Hall of Fame for a school district here in San Antonio, and we interview all types of people. A few years ago, we interviewed a man who was 95 years old. Just last year, I interviewed a man who was 90 years old. Of course, we've interviewed people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s as well. But when you start getting up there in age, one of the challenges you're going to have when you're working on these biopics, it's just part of aging. But someone might remember it one way, but through the years, it might have got lost in the shuffle that's not actually what happened. So, and that's not a disrespect to anyone. What it is, it's just we're all human and we all think about something. Ryan, you could ask me what I had for lunch yesterday and I don't know if I can tell you. But you remember what you remember. But so when you're interviewing people, one of the things I've realized that it's good to not rely on just one source, that you also interview others. So if there was a coach involved that's still alive or someone that is someone you accessible to that you can get, then get that. And get them to tell their version of that story of that particular person who you're profiling. And also get teammates or classmates or family or friends. Use multiple sources when you're telling the story of a particular individual or a group of individuals. Do not rely on just one source. I do think that eliminates the potential for error, because it can happen. So, and I know in today's day and world, our students are, they're going to school, they're working jobs, they're with their families, they have their personal life, and I just want to do this one thing and just get this knocked out. Well, not necessarily. If you want to do it right, it's about the work. We talked about that in this interview, and you want to produce high quality work. And the way you do that is dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and that means multiple interview sources. The other thing that I do like to do when I'm doing these biopics is I like to do the research, and I will be at a library, a public library of that city. A lot of times it's here in San Antonio, but there's been opportunities where I had to go to Houston, Dallas, wherever that source might live. But I go to the library and I go through old newspaper articles. You'll be surprised what you'll find. And you'll find written documentation that states how it happened. That in itself is two birds with one stone. And what I mean by that is the script writing that you're doing for a biopic is confirmed that, yes, this happened in the year 19. This person did this. For example, if it's sports, they won this state championship. It happened on this date. This is the event. This is how fast they ran or how far they threw the discus or whatever it was. You have an article there. That's one bird. The second bird with that stone is now you have a visual that you can drop into the video timeline that you show this page one archaic story, even though it may not be the original newspaper, but it still has that nostalgia to it. And you add it to the video instead of just saying it without a true visual. Now, when you're in the digital communications world, you're addressing your audience for audio and you're addressing your audience for video. So two birds with one stone, you're finding an archive article that strengthens your script and it also strengthens your video presentation. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do because you want to be credible. You want to do the work right. This is what opens doors for more work because you're someone who pays attention to detail and you're a good storyteller. You're telling it as it is. And trust me, and I don't want to mention any names, but I've interviewed sources who have said, oh, yes, I did this, winning a state championship, but it turns out that maybe they thought it was a state championship, but it happened so long ago, it was maybe a second place finish. And you want to make sure you confirm that you have the information right. Or it could go the other way. Oh, I finished third place in that event, but it turned out they really won first place and they actually won the championship. Well, you want to tell the story and you want to make sure you have it right. So confirming with other sources can go a long way. So I think that is the secret to success, Ryan, when you're doing the work in that regard.
I want to zoom in to the interview and the art of the interview, because I know you probably have insights on the kinds of questions to ask to get really great stories from your subjects. And again, this can apply to more than just personal storytelling or personal branding or these kinds of biopics. These kinds of interview insights can apply to podcasting and journalists and public relations and so much of what we do. So can you zoom into what makes great interviews and some of the questions that lead to some of the best moments?
Thank you. I think some of the best interviews are when you can make the source feel comfortable and make the source know that the camera, the big bright TV lights that can be blinding, because I'm talking about face-to-face. I mean, all my interviews are face-to-face. Yes, you could do a Zoom or a team, and I'm not disrespecting that. I mean, if that's all you could get it, you can only get it that way because so-and-so is in Atlanta and you're in San Antonio. I understand that. I totally get it. But the best way to do it is face-to-face if you can get it. But what I do is when I'm in the room, I have production equipment. I have a camera, I have TV lights, and the source is sitting there and they're looking at this equipment and they see you sitting there and all that video production equipment can look intimidating. It can make it look like, okay, I can't see, or make them a little nervous. You need to I think a great communication professional will find a way to say, ignore the camera, ignore the lights. It's just us. We're talking. Yes, we're recording it. But at the same time, let's just have a conversation. Let's just have a conversation. And then some people, okay, and some people can still be nervous, but even the people who are still nervous, you can get them to not be nervous if you just start talking to them and you just build from small to big. I always start off every interview with, I know your name. I know I know your name, but I know your name. But just for the record, we're recording it. Can you pronounce your name? Can you tell me your first name? Can you tell me your last name? And can you spell it and make sure? And, I know that sounds like elementary, but just that question, you're hearing their voice. You're seeing how they're coming across on camera. You're asking them something so easy that they just feel it's starting to build that trust. And they go, okay, I didn't know you're ended your name with a Y. I thought it was with an E. So glad you pointed that out for me. However that goes, and then you go to the next question. And it could be another simple question. Well, what hometown, what high school, where did you go, or where are you from? Just some small stuff, and then you just start building. And you already have crafted your questions, have done your homework, and you know where you're going with the interview. You've crafted your questions to get to your money questions. So you build from small to big. And then as you go, there could be times when the source is not answering the questions the way you envisioned, and that takes you to a different mindset. You're going, okay, I'm not what I'm looking for. So I need to craft the question a different way, or I need to take the interview a different way to get to where I want to go. Because remember, if you're doing a 3-minute biopic, you're only using 1 or 2 good, strong sound bites to drop into the timeline. If you have the luxury of doing an hour-long video presentation biopic, then yes, you have more, you can let it go longer with the interview. But if you're having to be strategic, your sound bites really have to be thinking, I really want this person to you're not telling them what to say in no way, but you're looking for, if you know that this person did something in their life and you want them to address that, then you find a way to get there, and you will get there. You just have to work at it. You have to work at it. But the secret is you got to make the source feel comfortable. And then when you do get there, then you could do follow-up questions to get a little bit more information if you can. But you will get there if you ask the questions clean and correct, you get them to where you want. And along the way, like I said earlier, when they're answering the questions and they feel super comfortable with you now, and they're answering the questions the way you're thinking, where they're recalling or they're telling you how important or how special it is. The case that I gave you earlier about winning the Athletic Hall of Fame honoree award and being the honoree for the year 20, or if that's the given year that we're in. I mean, this every year there's a different year, but for that year, let's use 20. You get to say, how do you feel? What does it make? Why does it mean so much to you after, this great feat you did happen 50 years ago? But in this year, we're honoring you. How does that make you feel? And that if they come back and they give you an answer and they're emotional about it, you can see that they're watering up, or you can see they're laughing and smiling. It just doesn't get any better. I mean, that's what we do. We're storytellers. We're showing that person's personality. We're telling a story, and we're doing it at the best, highest level we can.
You mentioned money questions. I'd imagine that's a good example of a money question. What are some other examples of money questions in your experience?
I mean, the good examples of money questions are just the ones that you could sometimes they might mention something that you didn't know, and you were like, wait a minute, I wasn't aware of this. But you don't want to, I guess you could reveal that if you do, and you don't want to look unprepared, but you could get a surprise. And yeah, it's okay to mention, hey, I didn't know that about you. And then you're crafting a money question for that situation, because it's something that's new information that you learn. That's what the beauty of these interviews are about. You learn from the sources that you're working with, and you go, wow, I didn't know this part about this person. And so I'd like to craft a money question to address that point. So you just have to always be on your toes, and you always have to be thinking, because you're thinking about the interview while you're there in the field, but you also have to be thinking about the post-editing that's involved when you're back in your own world and you're editing the presentation. And I know you can focus on that better when you're already there, but a good communications professional, producer, videographer, editor, whatever hat you want to call it, is thinking about the next step already. They're thinking, okay, well, there's my money. That's my sound bite. That's the card I'm going to use. High five me, Mr. Interview Source. That's what we're looking for. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, and if you get 2 money questions or even 3, oh man, it's Christmas. I mean, you just have to work with the flow of how you go into the interview with one mindset, but you shift when you learn new information. So you just got to follow the process. And I think make yourself flexible. Don't be so structured. Don't be thinking, well, I'm only here for this one thing. Well, okay, but you should also make yourself flexible, because you'll be surprised. It gives you more options to work with when you're back in the editing area. Like, okay, well, wait a minute, this is a good direction to go as well. And we're telling stories, right? So let's tell their story.
And in the editing room, do you have any advice for someone who's struggling to put it together as a cohesive story? I know some editors might start with the most important thing and kind of build a story around that. Other editors might go chronologically. Do you have any tips for how to actually put the story together once you have all of those different digital assets?
I mean, when you're doing historical pieces, that's a lot of what I do. The chronological is probably the easier road, and it's also probably the one that makes most sense. I mean, you're telling their story from the beginning to where they are now, or where they were and where they are now. So I do think the chronological does serve its purpose. At the same time, if you're trying to do impact at the start, then there's nothing wrong with showing that person at the height of their career at the very top, and then you retract back or rewind back and show them, before this happened, this great moment happened, let's go back and show you how we got there. So you can slice the apple either way. It really depends on your audience. If you're doing a gala like I was describing earlier with the Athletic Hall of Fame, the chronological is a good avenue, because it shows the growing years, and then it shows the moments, so the big moments in their lives. But if you're doing something that's more for, I don't know, Netflix, streaming, whatever it might be, Hollywood movie production, then yes, the impactful at the top could really go a long ways as well. And then you rewind it back. So I think it depends on the mode that you're working with, and it depends on your audience. I think that's what it is. But no matter what mode you're working in, if you don't have the good field of materials, if you didn't do your homework, if you didn't get all the right ingredients, I like to say like it's cooking a meal. If you didn't get all the groceries, when you go into the editing room, you could say you want to go this way, but if you don't have the elements to go that way, then it's going to be a big challenge. So as a digital communications pro, you need to wear hats, I think, and you need to think about the writing, the videography, the editing, and really the producing, because the producing that's what it leads to is the producer is the one who's setting up all the different sources that you're going to use to grab those groceries, if you will. And also the producer is the one who's going to do that research and make sure that you're confirming all information is accurate. And the producer is also the one who's going to help put together a timeline or a storyline of how this is all going to be presented. So if you're working with a team of people, then great. You have others to bounce off of, and it's always good you could do that because we're in communications and it's good to do that. But if you're a one-person operation, then you're wearing multiple hats. And I can tell you in the news business, back when I was doing it, back in the decade of the 90s, they had a true videographer, they had a true reporter, they had a true anchor. In today's newsroom, those three positions are now one position. And it's called the multimedia journalist. So I'm old school, but maybe I was the guinea pig of where we're at now, because all these hats that I wear, they're now being combined to one person, if you think about it. So a communications person needs to be a good writer. They need to be a good photographer. They need to be a good videographer. They need to be a good producer. They need to be a good fact checker. They need to be all of that in order to fly high and be successful, I think.
And being able to master all those kinds of skills in your business or for your profession, even as an employee, hopefully will get a little bit easier with some of the technological advancements that we've seen. But it absolutely doesn't make it any easier in the sense that you're using all of these different tools to do all these different jobs that used to be done by many different people. So even if you're using AI agents or if you're using technological tools to shorten the work, you still have to think about the end product and that audience. Can you tell us about making sure that we're serving audiences and the importance of audience research in the craft of crafting those kinds of messages, be they for a podcast or a public relations person who's maybe interviewing a media expert, or even the biopic? I think that a lot of these kinds of lessons can translate to all sorts of different categories. So let's talk about audience.
That's a great question. I mean, the audience is very important. If you don't put yourself in the audience's shoes, then they could easily click, you're gone. However it may be, just like they're not going to be part of the party. So you definitely got to think about the audience. You got to make them, it goes back to informing and entertaining, the phrase I told you earlier. You have to present it from the top where you lure them in and you keep them. And you do that by knowing your audience. And there's different audiences out there, and we all bring different experiences to the table, and it's a challenge. I mean, there's a lot of people, so you have to think about what works. But maybe a podcast can work for a certain audience. Maybe the trendy younger person that is like, figure snap, give me the info, possibly. A podcast could handle that. A biopic, maybe that's more for someone who might be a little older and they just want to, watch it in a movie format. You can slice that apple either way. A podcast could work for someone who's older, and a movie could work for someone who's younger. I mean, it depends how you slice it. But I think the bottom line is providing different platforms for every audience is something that a good communications professional should always be mindful of, because you're presenting the product in different formats so the consumer could have a different medium in order to digest the information. But you can't provide that to the consumer if you're only stuck in this one platform mode. So I do think caring about your audiences, how they consume their communication material, is something that definitely, Ryan, needs to be accounted for, because as you mentioned, we're in the technology age and we've never been in this modern age more than ever now. I mean, who knows where we're going to be 10 years from now, but where we're at right now in this year and this time, we're in a fast moving world, and sometimes you only got seconds to communicate to someone, and sometimes you get the luxury of getting to communicate an hour long, if you get that. But The reality is we're in a fast-paced world and you're just getting seconds and maybe some minutes. And that's really all you're getting when you're communicating to people. And so we have to be mindful of these things when we're out there communicating the good work that we do.
What is one actionable skill that you think students should work on first? I know that we have to wear a lot of hats. I know that we have to master AI. We have to master the digital communication and media tools. There's so many things to learn. But what is one that you would put above all others if you had to pick one?
Well, if it's going to be, I've always said this. I do think that, I think writing. I think you got to be a good writer. The software's the software. Yes, the software can be intimidating if you don't know it and you're like, I don't know Adobe Premiere, or I don't know Final Cut, or I don't know iMovie, or whatever it is. It sounds intimidating, but if you take the tutorials, if you find a mentor, if you take the lessons that you need to learn the software, you'll learn basics and enough to, get you through the work. But the one thing that it's more challenging to do and learn quicker, or to learn and take it to a different level, is the writing. Because if you think about it, the writing started when you first started school in kindergarten, and you go all through these grades and you go to collegiate. And if you never paid attention to writing, it could be a little bit of a challenge when you start to go, well, wait a minute, you can retrack it. You can try to strengthen your writing, and that could help. But at the same time, if you don't pay attention to it throughout your educational journey, it can make it a big challenge to when you want to start doing it in the real world. So I think, to your question, I think every good communicator is a good writer, because it doesn't matter the medium, the words tell the story, and then the images drop on top of the words. And how do you get the images there is on the software, but the software is not telling the story. And a lot of novice communications people think, oh, well, I can do it on Premiere and I'll just hit the button and they'll tell the story. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. What tells a story is the words that are crafted in the script that gives you the flow of the message that's being presented. And the words that the communication professional writes in the script dropped in with the words that the source says in their quote or their testimonial or their interview. And you marry all this in together and you're having a written composition that's telling the story. Once you have that, because that's the first rule of one editing, is you have the words, the audio track down, and then you're dropping these compelling images. You hope they're compelling images. You're dropping down these images to help reinforce the storytelling. So my answer to your question is be a good writer.
Excellent. And for the person who is sitting and staring at that blank page, who is thinking, I need to write this script. I have what I need, but I'm lost. What direction would you point them in? What makes a great script? What are the things that you would look for if someone was giving you a script, and how would you improve that script?
That's a tough question, but my answer to the question would be, creativity goes a long ways. It really does. And if you have creative writing, then that's the part about the entertaining, the inform, entertain. Then you can definitely craft those words and make them fun, right? And do a written script that's going to sing, if you will. So sometimes when you're writing and you're not feeling it, and I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just giving you my experiences. If you're not feeling it, you're hungry, you're tired, you've had a tough day or whatever. Sometimes it's best to just close the computer down and just push it away for that. Get your head right, get your sleep, eat that good meal, feel comfortable, let the juices start coming to you. Close your eyes, put your hand. I like to put my fingers on the keyboard and just let them rest there. Other people like to get old-fashioned pen and paper. Whatever your thing is, whatever you do, find what's good for you. And then you'll be so surprised. The words will just start flying inside you, and then you just get after it. You get after it and you just do what you got to do. The words can't come to you if it doesn't go back to what we've been talking about in this podcast, and that's the field work. Doing the research, doing the interviews, doing all the legwork, knowing the sources, grabbing all that information. Because once you have that in your mind and you can put together a skeleton or an outline or however that works, a lot of people do that. I'm going to be honest, I'm more of yes, I do craft it into a semi-outline, but it's not a formal, just an informal, however you jot your notes. But just having the feel, remembering when you were interviewing that source and they really lit up when they talked about a certain moment in their life and they just took it to another level and they got up so emotional. That should be also presented in your script. That should also be part of your storytelling, because you saw how moved that source was when they hit that particular topic of your interview. So sometimes close the computer if you're not feeling it, and then get your head right, and then it'll come. Because anyone who's watching this podcast, they have to be communications people or even like communications to a certain degree. And we're all good, creative people. And I would like to think when you're creative, you know how to get those juices flowing. And then once they are flowing, that's when the magic starts. And just let the magic happen.
I love that you elevated the role of emotion in the process. I think that a lot of people hear show, don't tell, but they're confused about how to do it. And it sounded like you were talking about using emotion as the way to get to show, don't tell, right? The way to access the real core and heart of the story, elevate it to the position that it needs to be in a particular media piece. Other than show, don't tell, and going with the feeling, is there anything else that people need to know when they're constructing these digital media pieces?
Paying attention to detail. Making sure that, we're all human, we're not perfect, but do your best to make sure every rock was uncovered before you put it out there. You don't want to put something out there and it turns out there's a big error that, someone said something that never happened. Or you're putting large words on the screen. We didn't talk about words on the screen, but letters on the screen that help reinforce the written word, the spoken word, and then the visual. And then we're putting like words on the screen, Chiron, however you want to phrase it. And there's a misspelled word. I know that sounds crazy, but it happens. So it's not good. It's pay attention to detail. Make sure that, everything you have is as clean and correct. Mistakes do happen, but you try your best to avoid them if you can. And you do that by going over it more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. You go over it and then you present it as a final draft. But trying to do something and not, vetting it is not the way to go. When people see it on TV, once people see it online and it's done right, you're regarded as a credible storyteller. Then that starts a good reputation. If it's done with errors or just not clean, that starts another type of reputation. What kind of reputation do you want? I want to be credible. There's others who may not, but I choose my career to be credible. Because if Mario Rios is going to do work, I want the audience to know that the guy gives it everything he has and he does his best to make sure that it's credible. Because that's what journalism's all about, is we're storytellers, but we don't want to have sprinkle of errors throughout the presentation because that could take the audience to a different way. And that's not what I believe. And so in this interview today with you, Ryan, my biggest thought here is what kind of storyteller does the people who are watching want to be? Do you want to be credible, or do you want to just be half-baked, or do you want to be with a lot of errors? And I choose option A. Incredible.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience as a final thought, something to really take home and think about our conversation today?
I just think that I do appreciate your podcast. This is a wonderful way to communicate. And it's really, I do believe that our students at UTSA they're amazing. They're amazing students. I always tell students, when you're in the university, you're not there because, oh my gosh. Some people think that this is the best place to be at this time in my life. And of course it is. But at the same time, the one thing that everybody has in common is they just want to get their life better. They want to open a door for more success. And how can you not appreciate someone like that? I know I do. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, where you've been. It's all about going to the next level. And you do that, I believe, with a university education. And when you're a communications professional and you get that degree, then all that hard work and that creativity that you were born with, that's in your genes, and also that if it wasn't in your genes, you strive to work to get it. However you got it. Then you take that education and you take those skills and you take those experiences into the real world and you just give it all you got, and you work hard and you do the best you can and you treat people right and you put out a good product, and you'll be so surprised in life's journey where it could take you. I never thought. Grew up in a small town from a broken family where my parents separated and divorced, and we lived on food stamps and welfare. That was my background. And then going to college with no financial assistance. And I rose to get a master's degree and worked at media station outlets and worked in PR and did a lot of work in real estate, still do today. And being a college professor at UTSA, I never thought that could even be possible. But it was possible because I believed in a higher being and I put my faith above and I kept up the good fight. And I think anyone out there who's watching or hearing our podcast today is you can never give up. You give it your best foot forward. You learn all you can. You cultivate relationships. You work hard, put the best product out there. And man, you'll be surprised at the doors that will open up for you. You could one day been a production tech or a photographer or whatever, and you could rise to be the owner of a PR agency or an ad agency or a video company, whatever it is, or anything's possible. That's my last message or my final message, right? The sky's the limit, my friend. Anyone can do anything, but I'm biased. I love communications. So I'm going to just tell you that I applaud anyone who's out there doing the good work, but just keep it right, get after it, do the best you can, and the doors will open.
Is there anything that you wish I had asked you on this topic that I didn't get a chance to ask?
Every source is different. And as long as you show you care and you're respectful, then you can get the good information. Not every source is going to be like talkative or revealing. And sometimes you get short answers. Yes, no answers. Those are the worst. You have to find a way to get them to talk. You have to find a way to get them to give you the content to tell the story. They have the content. It's not like they don't want to talk. They just, for whatever reason, they're not feeling comfortable or whatever it is. And we talked about this earlier, but sometimes we have to be babysitters and we have to make sure that we are making them feel comfortable so we can get that good information. So it's not always going to be perfect when you do the interviews. You have to be able to pivot, and a good communication professional will pivot. You have to adapt to the personalities you're working with. That's for sure. And sometimes you're not going to get someone who's speaking in soundbite mode or giving you good descriptive answers. Sometimes you're going to get something that's different than that, and you have to be prepared and ready. You cannot leave an interview after it's over and not have something to work with when you're editing. And I think that's if I had to come up with something, that would be it. You have to find a way to grab something, even if it's not there. And sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I can't use any of it. Then it's almost like, well, maybe I can go around this and get it a different way from a different source. So, I mean, you have to start thinking outside the box. That's something that needs to be thought about as well, is we need to make ourselves thinking about multiple options in order to get to the finish line in the right way. So that would be it.
So whenever you get someone saying yes or no and not giving as much detail, that means you've got to go to these other people who might be in their lives. That is a really unique insight that I think that especially people who might be new to this kind of business or this kind of project and digital project wouldn't necessarily know to do. It kind of proves the level of experience that you have on this topic too, because all these little nuances, they add up to being able to tell stories more effectively, don't they?
Absolutely. And it's the way you just put it in your question. It reminds me of also some of the people that you're honoring may not be alive. They might be deceased and they can't speak for themselves. So you have to tell their story. So whether it's a yes, no type answer from an individual or it's someone who has passed on and is in heaven, then you want to still tell their story. So you have to rely on others to do it. But sometimes some of the best storytelling can come out that way because you find people who can tell their story and they remember it so well that they make it sing, if you will, when they tell you that information, and it can be just as powerful. Of course, there's nothing that could be as impactful as getting the source to describe something to you of how they felt when they hit that home run or how they felt when they did something spectacular. But if that opportunity is not there, then a good communications professional has to find a different way to get the audience there. And a lot of times other sources become your best friends and they let them tell that story. So I do still think that if it's a yes, no type scenario and that's the subject and they're the ones that the host biopic is on that person, there's gotta be a way that you grab something out of it. And it could require a follow-up interview. It's kind of like the writer's thing. It's kind of like when I was sharing the thought earlier about, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling this. I can't write this script right. I'm not feeling it. I need to push myself away a moment and take a deep breath and go get a nice meal or whatever it is and come back to this. It could be that. It could be, can we do a interview? Maybe they didn't feel comfortable in a UTSA office setting if that's where the interview was at. Maybe I need to go to this person's home. Maybe I need to go to the park. Maybe I need to just feel this out a little bit better. Maybe I need to talk to a family member who's close to this source and ask them, get their thought. What's their take? Share it without making it too dramatic, because you don't want to make it sound like, oh, is this a deal breaker? Or no, it's not any of that. It's just trying to get, oh, well, this person has a problem with public places or whatever it is. If they feel more comfortable in their home, oh, I'd like to do a follow-up interview. And you do that in a cool way though. And then you'll be surprised. You change the atmosphere and all of a sudden the yes, no's, they're not yes, no's anymore. I can't get this person to stop talking, you know? So you have to pivot no matter the situation. So that's an easy fix, a follow-up interview. But sometimes if it's still yes, no, while you're in the interview, then you try your best to try to ask those small questions, make them feel comfortable and get to that big question. Even if you just get one soundbite that's 10 to 15, 20, 30 seconds long of information of that source talking that's giving you mostly yes, no's, but they do talk and they do smile or they do give you something, you can hang your hat on. So that's what you're looking for. But I do think if it's really serious, a yes, no type, a follow-up interview would probably be the best option, I think, to see if we can get to where we want to go.
Mario, where can people find you online if they want to learn more?
The best place to find me, I have a real estate website, and I also have my UTSA email, and I'm on LinkedIn, Mario Rios LinkedIn. You'll find me there. My real estate website is riowell.com, RIOWELL.com. That's where I do all my real estate work with my communications work combined into it. And then, of course, at UTSA, my email address is mario@utsa. Very proud to be part of the team with Ryan at UTSA. I think we're surrounded by some amazing professors in the communications department. So I think all of us bring a lot of great talent to the table. And Ryan, I'm applauding you for your podcast. This is pretty amazing. So thank you for the good work you do as well.
We appreciate your wisdom and your time and sharing it with people so we can elevate all of our digital communication efforts. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been an honor. We appreciate it.